One of my favorite memories, that cool spring day in Mississippi, sitting in the car, afraid to even emit a remnant of a breath because of the possibility of interrupting a true legend in Mark Gordon, Doc Hazard, as he spoke to us about the trials and tribulations of unadulterated combat, the violence of action, the cries of his men begging for their mothers on the Siegfried line, and the German and American medics even helping each other out with their litters because of the level of said violence. My companion, cramped in the back of my hatchback, also hanging on every word in complete and utter silence. Some years have passed, and Doc has since gone on to holier lands, but those memories remain of a time in telling a story with a brother in arms and one of my closest friends, listening to the greatest generation, sharing subtle wisdom with every waking breath. What a time and a moment we will truly never forget. This next guest is that man. He is very near and dear to my heart as a friend, and when I think about human, I think about the values of God and family. This podcast might seem a tad more conversational, with my inserted thoughts here and there. But that's a product of us both being artists working in some of the same fields, and both of us understanding the struggles of being entrepreneurs. We both had thoughts on some of the matters of capturing stories, social media, and how all that kind of plays into our culture. Jesse Phillips commits himself on a daily basis to his faith in Christ, and he serves his family continuously as though he's born for the role. I've witnessed the man in his element at home, loving his family to the core with a willingness to do whatever it takes to provide. His work ethic is inspiring, his art is captivating, and he's a Marine. Jesse might not like me for this, but when I think of him, I don't think of the Marine. I think of a man who does everything for God and family, and a byproduct of that is his willingness to serve as a patriot. It's strangely reminiscent of our World War II generation, and maybe that makes it a bit ironic that my favorite memory was that spring day in Mississippi with the true legend. I wouldn't need to say a single word to Jesse about that moment ever again, but I guarantee we both recognize it as a defining episode in our art and lives as men. And that's why I respect this man so much. Here he is with an education on faith, family, and the value of duty. Jesse Phillips.
The Veterans Project is a comprehensive essay capturing the legacies of our warfighters, caregivers, and civilians who have stepped forward in defense of our patriotic principles in an effort to capture their stories and to never forget the staggering sacrifices of our nation's finest. This is the Veterans Project podcast, where our legacies are the mission. Here's your host, Tim K.
Yeah, that's how you know this is going to be a good podcast. Cheers.
Cheers.
Is that your phone vibrating?
I'll get it off the table.
You know what?
I'll get it off the table.
Okay.
You were just insulting where I live and saying I didn't have service, but now the world heard my phone has service out.
Yes, you do. Well, welcome to the Veterans Project podcast.
I'm sorry.
My name is Tim K, and I will be your host. So rudely sipping in the background was the magnanimous, always lively, beautiful, gorgeous, Marine. I mean, those don't go with Marine, but anyway, Jesse Phillips on the podcast. Jesse, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate you being here, and I thank you for your friendship.
You bet, brother. I'm glad to be here, and I will try to be nice.
For those of you listening in at home right now, this is live. For those of you listening right now, I just, in all seriousness, wanted to say that Jesse and I met.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to move this thing because it's
at Sundance Film Festival, and back in what was it? 3 years ago?
I can't. Was it 16?
2016.
Yep.
We met in 2016, and Jesse and I did not immediately fall in love. We already told this story kind of on your podcast. We didn't like each other.
Yeah.
But, we were kind of like both jam-packed into this car, and Jesse was not given the VIP treatment. And I showed up, and you kind of tell it.
I've never been a VIP person, so I wasn't expecting anything. I had just been at SHOT Show for 4 days.
But you're going to Sundance Film Festival as a guest of honor, so you kind of...
Yeah, but I don't really care. I was just stuffed in the back seat instead of the front seat, and I'm a gigantic unicorn.
You are big.
And I was folded in half and had 2 dogs that were like... I don't hate animals.
Yeah.
But I use them as tools on the farm.
Right.
Horses
it's just different
and dogs,
for you.
but I don't want them licking me and crawling all over me. And I'm also car sick, if anybody... If you know anything about me at all, you know that I have extreme motion sickness.
Well,
and then you come flopping in the back seat trying to cram your scrawny self in there. And then you had your little whole attitude with your nose turned up, and I was like, all right. So I just didn't talk to you. I wasn't mad at you. I just didn't talk to you.
It's very ironic that both of us kind of thought of each other in the same way.
I thought you were a pretentious snob.
I mean, I know you're being nice right now. But when I saw you, I thought... Okay, this guy's supposed to be from Mississippi. He's supposed to be down to earth and like humble.
Wrong.
And you like totally betrayed every sense I had of that. I was like, this is totally a big letdown. Well, in case you haven't noticed, this is going to take a little bit of a different tone. And so far the podcasts have all been conversational. This one will be as well. The point of this podcast obviously being to build a bridge between the civilian and veteran communities, because it is so important that our stories are told in the proper manner and these legacy pieces are honored in the right way. But Jesse and I have such a good friendship. I mean, the Phillips family is like my family. So, and we kind of grew up in the same way. And so I really wanted to get to the heart of who you are, because I want people to know from this, and I have a feeling quite a few of my followers have seen you and seen you all over my stuff. Tragically.
All up in your
You're
stuff.
all up in it. But, I really wanted you to kind of go into your background and how you grew up, because that's very important. You grew up in Mississippi.
That's right.
Starkville.
Yep.
And I'd like to hear about your background, how you were raised, man. That's important.
Okay. All right. Well, I was born at a very young age in a house that I built with my own hands. Mm-hmm. No, I'm just kidding. How far back do you want me to go?
I just start with, where, kind of how you grew up and how you were raised and kind of what led your path to the Marine Corps.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I was raised, I was one of 13 children, and my mother and father loved each other very much, apparently.
Drop that shock and awe button right there.
Yeah.
13.
And we didn't have any twins. We were not Catholic. And those are two of the questions we always get.
Or Mormon.
Or Mormon. We were not Mormon. My father was he was a football coach. He coached at Mississippi State, and then he got out of that and became a full-time minister. And he all he did was go to Mississippi State and teach young college boys that wanted to learn about the Bible and Jesus. And he sat down and would teach them. And he never charged a dime for anything. I never asked for money.
Wow.
So we were raised completely trusting the Lord on our income and where everything we came from. And we always had the best Christmases. Always had the most delicious foods every meal.
Yeah.
We had a lot of kids. There's a lot of fighting over the grub at the table, but there was always enough.
Can imagine.
So also on top of that, I'm sorry, I'm talking into the microphone better.
There you go.
That sounds way better. I was also homeschooled. Okay, so I was that weird kid.
Me and you both, though.
You were homeschooled.
Yes, the whole way.
Forgot about
The
that. I was
whole way,
homeschooled.
bro.
So I honestly, you went to college though, right? Wow, my neighbor needs to slow down. In case y'all didn't know, we are sitting on my front porch.
This is the most Mississippi setting ever, though.
If y'all can't hear the crickets, there are crickets in the background. Sitting on my front porch. It is midnight.
Yes.
The neighborhood is asleep. Live on a dead end road.
I just
all
got
the
in.
lights on that you can see. There's about 3 lights in the distance. Those are all family members' houses.
Yeah, we're on the compound.
Phillips compound.
Yep.
But anyways, so you grew up with a big family.
Yep.
You grew up with, faith being a major staple in your
Yes.
life. What led you into the Marine Corps, with that background?
Well, the way we were raised, defend the weak,
Yeah.
stand up for the little guy was always something that our dad and mother ingrained into us. So that was just normal. But, like most veterans nowadays, September 11th had a big part of everything. I was 11 when the towers got hit. I remember where I was. I was homeschooled, so I wasn't at school or in history class. I was actually on the way out to go help a neighbor build a barn, and saw it on the news on the way out. I was 11. That afternoon, after we kind of figured out what was all going on with the towers and everything, I remember calling my buddy Grant Jeffries, who I don't know if you've met yet or not.
Yes, I have met him.
I called him up, and we decided at 11 years old that we were going to join the Marines and go kill bad guys when we got old enough. And so that's kind of where I decided to become a Marine, was when I was 11.
One thing that I'm always struck by whenever I come out here is just how much your family just bonds and how strong that bond is. Does that have an impact in how you lead your Marines? And do you feel like that, the way that your parents raised you has really impacted the way that you do things now in the Corps?
That's a fantastic question. And yes, I think would be the direct answer to that. I didn't, I don't want to get too sad, but, the audience doesn't know my father passed away in 2013.
Right.
We're a very close family. Since his passing, a lot of us older ones got to move home, and I've been able to be around. We still have 6 of the young ones still at the house with Mom. Wow. So I've had to learn, not only in the Marine Corps, to implement what my father taught me, but I've actually implemented how to kind of take care of my brothers and sisters in a way that I'm not their father figure at all, but in a way that's more than just a regular sibling would be.
Right.
If that makes sense. So being good at one, I feel like makes me better at the other.
Yeah, and that makes sense. The fraternal bond, obviously, in the Corps, in any infantry unit, really is so strong. And that's something that I really noticed with you was, immediately when we met at Sundance, obviously, first impressions aside.
That only lasted like 30 minutes.
Yeah,
and
it was
we were,
very short.
We were snuggling and having a good time.
Yes, we were. Got romantic.
Yes.
And, when we were in that setting, just the bond, that I could see that you came from great parents that really cared about you immediately, because it reminded me of a lot of the, families surrounding me growing up, even my family, my parents, how they had raised me. It reminded me of how I would have been if I hadn't disappointed my mother. And how I had grown up I had grown up the way that I needed to. Done the right things and all that, made good choices like they taught me.
We all make terrible choices.
Yes, my choice is a
times.
little worse. But it's like the dynamic of us just hanging out and seeing you as an artist. That's something I really want to get into here. Obviously, you and I talked before the show, and we're not going to get too much into the combat because this is based on reintegration, and that's really what this project is about, and that's really what I want the podcast to be too. But for me as an artist, when I saw you, I just saw this dynamic artist coming from this very different background. I came from Texas, but I'm obviously a little bit more that unicorn personality, a little colorful, if you will. And you just hear it in our voices. I'm a little bit more up tempo, and I'm like that Zed song that comes on the radio, and you hear it, and it's like, okay, that's a little too loud now. Let's turn that down 10 decibels right when I start talking. Yeah,
I don't even know what Zed is. So.
Okay, yeah. Well, how house music, like heavy dance club music. Yeah. And
You are a
were
unicorn.
yes, and you're like the George Strait song that comes on from 1985 when he like started his career. Well, 1979, whenever he started his career, that's you.
I know you're trying to jab me, but I take that as
That's
a
not even a jab.
complete
No.
compliment.
Listen, that guy is Mr. Texas. He's the king of country.
Well,
and he's in San Antonio, so we love him to death. You, even me, not liking country, you have to. If you said you don't like George in San Antonio, they execute you on the spot.
Yeah,
so
well, good for them.
we're both artists with very similar feelings in a lot of ways on a lot of things.
Yes.
But we obviously do things very differently too. But I think the connecting factor between the two of us is the fact that we have so much respect for our community, especially that older brotherhood. Can you talk a little bit about that, about where that art stems from? Kind of why you are the way you are.
Well, that's a tough question, man. But honestly, I mean, when I look back, it came from my father, who was you never got to meet him, but he was a type
I would have
A,
loved to, yeah.
type A football coach. Very straight laced. A lot of people would call him, but also loving and kind. But he was you look at him, you would think he was an athlete, but he was an artist too. He was a writer. He drew things. He helped me when I was a kid. I was a problem child, not to get into all that, but I was the kid in the family that was like the project because I was an idiot and a moron. But he encouraged me at a very young age to pursue photography because we went on a trip before digital was a thing, and we all had disposable cameras, and he went and probably spent $84 to get them all developed and flipped through them, and he pulled me aside and was like, "Hey, your compositions and all these look awesome. Like yours are different. Wow. So maybe you ought to look at doing that some more."
You see what he did there, right there, though? He immediately lifted you up,
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
He was looking for that as a father. He was looking for that. Looking back now that I have almost 4 kids of my own, I can see what he was doing then. But back then I was like, oh wow, cool. Yeah. So since I was like, it was actually 2012, or I'm sorry, 2012. A decade before that, 2002, I was 12.
Right.
That's when I decided, I was like, oh, cool, maybe I do have something that I can work on. And so that started the artistic side. But with tying that to the older generation was my father. It was a rule, you never passed an older veteran that was wearing a veteran hat without stopping and shaking their hand. Like everywhere we went. You stop at Captain D's, you go in, there's a guy, you stop, shake their hand, and thank them for their service, welcome them home. So that was what we were used to. Both my grandfathers were in the service. We had uncles on both sides that were in World War II and Vietnam. And so we had a lot of family history growing up. And I just remember sitting there asking my grandparents questions and my dad teaching me how to listen to older generations. And I remember several times talking to Grandpa and Dad just afterwards being like, "Hey, when you ask these guys these questions, just ask it. And then just be quiet." He's like, just be quiet. And I mean, it was funny. I wrote a short story the other day, and that was part of the line I put in. It was the best part of the story always comes after the silence. And I know that you know about that, right? Doing what you do, but especially with the older.
We saw that together. In fact,
yes, we did. That's what I was kind of getting at. But just to learn, a lot of people in my film work, when they look at the interviews I've done, and a lot of them get really emotional, just like a lot of yours do. And they wonder, oh, how do you do that? You get them drunk, you do this, whatever, they're trying to figure out how to hack it. And really all it boils down to is, do you respect them enough? Do you actually care? You don't care about trying to look cool, to get a story, to get a lot of views or a lot of hits or whatever. Do you honestly care about this soul that you're talking to? That's the big one. It's really easy to have that, but it's easy to not have it too. And then the other thing is, ask a question and shut your darn mouth, man. And don't try to be the hero that's just going to keep pulling the story out. Like most of the time, it doesn't take much to get them talking.
Right.
But you have to have that care.
That's really powerful because, one thing I've learned in all of my work in within the Veterans Project and the Caregiver Project is I had to learn to shut up.
So, yeah, I could see that being for me, I'm not a talker normally.
Right.
you are. So I could
Yes.
see that being tough for you. For me, it was easy. It's like, oh, I don't have to talk that much.
I would even take it further. Egocentric, cocky. Like I said, not really the way I was raised. I was raised by awesome parents who were very godly and God-fearing. My dad being a pastor, my mom being a homemaker and homeschooled us. She really raised us right, and she came from an old school home too. And old school back then was like, milking the cows before 4 a.m., 50 of them, and then lifting bales of hay and tossing them 100 yards down a football
Sounds like
field.
the way I was raised.
Right. That's how her parents were. They grew up in that old school culture. They moved over as, their parents moved over as Swedish immigrants to Minnesota, and, farming was all they knew. So, while my grandparents were very kind, they had a very hardcore work ethic. Empathy being one of those things that my mom raised me to learn, but I didn't really discover the focus of that until I was about 25 years old, 26 years old, when I started the Veterans Project. It was learning to really just shut up. And I keep saying shut up because those of you who know me and know my colorful unicorn, bang drink soul,
Yes.
understand that really learning to be quiet in the moment. And that's the, real connection between me and you was like, I could see instantly when you asked a question at Sundance, you were listening, and all of the other, not to say any names, but all the other loudmouths around us and personalities and talking heads that were around us, and there were a lot of good people there too, but a lot of those that were loudmouth and talking heads, we just looked at each other like, we don't want to be a part of this. This is
not at all.
This is not art. This is not what it should look like, right? And so for me, like, that sense of empathy was evident within you very early on. I could see that right away. So I thought, that's our connection right there. Is a few years previous when I had started the project, I learned to shut up. And then I saw you, in that you were already there. And that was really powerful for me. So how, in the past 3 years since we've, have you learned more? Have you grown as an artist? Do you feel, I see it in your work, but can you talk a little bit about that and your growth? And what do you think has changed?
For sure, man. I certainly hope I've grown in the past 3 years. I think every year, if you look back at yourself and think, I think every time you look back at your work as an artist and as who you are as a person, you need to be like, dang, I need to tighten up a little bit. Because if you're ever like, yeah, dude, I got it. The Bible says, if take heed lest you fall, if you think you stand, because you will fall. Yep. So yes, hopefully I've grown, and I know you were asked earlier about my how it helped me lead my Marines. Definitely the past 3 years since my father's died, my whole leadership style with my family, as my family's grown, I've had to learn how to. And by my family growing, I mean I have 3 kids. I got a 4th one on the way who I forgot to tell you about. Yeah, you saw it on Instagram, so I'm sorry.
That is part of that's the part of me that wonders if Jesse is really a good human being. There are moments where I'm like, oh man, he is amazing. And then he won't tell me like he's having a 4th kid. And then I find out when the kid is 6 years old.
It was on Instagram and he's still in the belly, okay? It was a cute little post.
It was, but to find out on Instagram.
I know, bro. I'm
unbelievable.
Sorry. Can we get back to
Yes, go back, yes.
I don't even remember what we're talking about.
We were talking about your advent as an artist.
Okay, yeah. So as I used to, when I first became an NCO, well, even before when I was a junior Marine, I was very much a fire plug. I don't know if you could tell, but I was the guy that would yoke you up and put my hands all over you if you weren't doing the right thing. And I was a giant, so that was easy to do.
And I want to preface what you're saying by just saying that you just got back from Afghanistan in your tour of Helmand Province. I don't want to wax over that completely, where we don't even mention that.
Yeah. Okay. And this time, I was a lot older this time. I'm married and have 3 kids when I go this time, and it's different. It's just different when you're not the kid,
right?
And it's. But having my own children, losing my father, and having to deal with my younger siblings in a different kind of almost I'm not their father, but in a way that they're really looking to me more than normal. I had to learn how to deal with everybody. I used to think you treat everybody the same,
Right.
as a leader, and I'm starting to find out as a leader you don't do that.
You have to learn personalities, right?
Exactly. Much like when you're doing an interview with somebody as an artist in photography or film or just a podcast like this, you can't treat everybody the same. You have to learn how to read people pretty quickly and learn what makes somebody tick and what doesn't. One guy might, respond really well to busting his balls in front of all his friends and making them look like an idiot. Not many people respond that way. Well to that. Most people respond well to a little bit of brother, treat you like a little brother, pull you aside and be like, hey man, you messed up here, but you did good here. How about you work on that? But the next guy might be different. And you just got to have to, So as an artist growing and as a father growing with my kids and as a Marine growing, platoon sergeant, from squad leader, platoon sergeant, it changes things, how you deal with people. And I feel like working on one makes you better at the other two.
And, I think that's something that people don't quite understand, is that every part of your life affects your art.
Yes.
Dude, I get into some holes, man. I'll be the first to say, where I get depressed or I get down. Oh, I know, as Christians, we never get depressed or down. No, that's a myth. Just because you accept Christ doesn't mean your life becomes perfect. But one thing I've
just
noticed...
ask Job.
Yes. So then you get into these holes where you get depressed, and, I do it a lot within my art where I'll get down in a moment, and I don't know what it is that's particularly affecting me there in that part, but every little thing adds up to the whole. And adds up to the whole of the work. Do you feel that within your work? Do you feel like that sense, like everything, your family will affect what you do?
100%, man. I mean, yeah, for sure. I mean, just like, for instance, I told you before we came on air, but a couple weeks ago, that's one of the reasons why I didn't tell you, so hope you feel bad about this. We were expecting, we hadn't told anybody yet because it was early on, like 12, 13 weeks. And then we thought we had a miscarriage. And for a week, we thought we'd lost a baby. My wife was sick.
Jeez.
Really sick. It was an emotional deal. I was trying to figure out, all right, do I tell my kids? It was over a holiday weekend. It was just trying to figure out what do we do? And I just remember in that time, I sat down and did some writing. Mm-hmm. And it was just much like Hellman did for me, and much like losing my dad and building the oak box ourselves and digging a hole ourselves and burying him behind the house that we built. Yeah. And, not nailing the lid down because we knew that the Lord's going to call his body up at the last day, that kind of deal. All that together definitely works on your art and makes it, and I know I hate to say it, but the sadness, all the hard things that happen in your life, I feel like make your art way better,
right,
than all the happy stuff.
Well, I think that goes back to what we were talking about with empathy.
Yeah,
you're not, I don't truly believe you can be a great artist, and you are a great artist. I don't truly believe that you can be a great artist without a sense of empathy, and all those hard things put you in positions where you had to have empathy. Yeah. I mean, losing your father, in the way that you lost him, was awful, tough, hard, all those things. I mean, just tragic in every way. Of course, you having your faith, knowing where he is a wonderful thing. But at the same time, it's still painful on this earth. Mm-hmm. And so going through that adds up to all the things where you experience as an art. And that's one thing, with this project that I really wanted to get to is, we're both artists. And that's something that is a massive similarity between the two of us. Despite having slightly different backgrounds, both being raised by great parents, but, having slightly different, being slightly different in our actions and the way that we are, those things add up. And that's really where I feel like we get along so well. is that sense of empathy and really truly wanting to know the story, right?
Right.
How do you get to that story? How do you get there? How do you get to the source? I want to know. I'm asking Jesse Phillips right now in this moment.
To get to someone else's story?
Yes.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of that is you just you honestly have to care for people, and I think it goes back to I believe in Jesus Christ, and I believe that He paid for my sins, and it's my job as a believer to reach out and try to tell lost souls about Him. So I honestly have a deep connection with every single living soul that I feel like I need to reach out and I need to care for them, because I don't know if they have put their faith in Christ. To be honest, I think that's where the deep passion comes from for each individual person. And it's funny because a lot of times I care so much about each individual person in my personal life. Some people think I'm a jerk because I don't call them back all the time. I don't text them back all the time. I have so many people I'm caring about that I have to put up these walls so I can care for my own wife and kids when I need to, because if somebody else pops in that bubble when I'm trying to take care of my wife and kids because I've been away or whatever it is, I am obligated, because I care for them,
Right.
whoever that person is, and it ends up, it takes me away from the people that I need to be around most. So all that means I kind of got sidetracked, but that's where I think it comes from, is I honestly care about their soul more than anything, more than the story.
Right.
I care about their soul more than YouTube view or Instagram like or
Right.
tweet. I don't really care about all that. Excuse me, that was my bang coming back up. That was gross.
And you know,
Mama, if
something-
you listen to this, I'm so sorry.
You know, something else that I wanted to point out is I'm glad you said that about, contacting people, because, before today, I hadn't heard from you in 8 months. So
You
Now
are a
that-
lying fool.
now that we're here, I just wanted to say, first of
wanna
all,
punch you
you
in the
owe me
face.
$650. You came outside and you lit my car on fire last time I was out here for some reason, and you told me that my photography was like
Subpar?
looking at the opposite of Picasso,
Ouch.
and it reminded you of drawings inside of the porta potties in Iraq, which we all know what those are.
Yes.
Yes.
A lot of Wagners.
Yes, a lot of a lot of ding dongs.
Where you totally sidetracked me.
Okay, yes, but we were talking about the art and the art piece, and that where you get that source of, and you were talking about souls.
Yeah. So I honestly care about them.
Right.
And then I got sidetracked and said, because I was using that as an example, like random people. At my whole adult life, I've tried to perfect the don't talk to me face when I'm at the gym or going to the airport or trying to grab a double cheeseburger in line. That's what I've tried to perfect. And for some reason, I used to think it was a curse. And now I'm starting to think maybe I need to quit fighting it. Maybe the Lord's using it for a reason.
Yeah.
People want to come up and tell me their life story. Random strangers want to
Uh-huh,
come
yeah,
up and
yeah.
tell me their life story. And it becomes annoying because I honestly care about them. But I honestly don't have any time,
Right.
because I have so many people that I'm taking care of. So all that being said, I'm trying to use, I don't know where I got sidetracked again, but
That's okay.
I honestly care about people's souls more than the story.
Yeah.
So it's easy when I have a story that I'm trying to tell to let that that empathy be seen by them, because I honestly do care about them. So that's not a hard thing. And then the other thing is just basically keep the conversation going. Ask some pointed questions, and I learned that from sitting like cross-legged, crisscross applesauce on the hardwood floor, listening to my granddad talk. And all you had to do was ask him a question every 5-10 minutes to keep him rolling.
Right.
And you would hear the most awesome, crazy stories. Same kind of deal. And the other part with talking to the older veterans is it helps. You've seen it, I guarantee it. When you come up, they're kind of a little bit standoffish.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really want to open up that much, and then they kind of find out, oh, wait a minute, you're a grunt. You've been on combat deployment. You've done this. You've done and then they start getting this relaxed, like, oh, this is familiar. Like, you're just like the guy that in my squad back in the 40s, And then that's where you kind of get that. I don't know, just be a people person.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know where that
that's...
comes from, but it honestly comes down to I honestly care about their soul more than anything, and then just ask a few pointed questions, get them to feel comfortable with you, and then shut your mouth and let them talk. And if and you know this, I'm saying this for the audience.
Oh no, yeah, totally.
If a gentleman stops talking in the middle of a story, and his lips start to quiver and a tear rolls down his cheek,
mm-hmm.
don't ever ruin that pause. Don't ever ask. Don't say a word. Don't take a breath, and don't ever break eye contact ever when you're talking. And I'm not talking about if you're trying to get a story. I'm talking about if you're having a conversation with somebody about something, and it doesn't even have to be a veteran. It can be anybody that is struggling with something and they're trying to tell you something. Don't break eye contact when they're in a moment of silence and deep contemplative, should I say what I'm about to say?
Yeah.
Because so many people ruin that silence with another question. And that person, a lot of times I'm that person when I'm trying to open up to somebody. And I'm okay, I think I feel comfortable enough to say what I'm about to say. And then they ask some random off-the-wall question. So anyway, that's back to shut up and keep your mouth shut.
It's that passion piece, right? Where people ask that question. How do you do that? How do you do that? It's like, okay, you shut your mouth and you go do it.
Yes. And you care more about the person that you're talking to than you do about whatever view or rating you're going to get out of it.
It's that foundational building, that foundational block on that building piece, on that concrete that you set out before you put the house down, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're building, you got to gather all your materials, you got to gather all the supplies, but it's those little pieces of empathy and caring that create the structure for you to have a business around that. It's not, like the project for me, never about, this isn't about me, but just us as artists. I never went, gosh, I wonder how this is going to make me money.
Yeah.
I never. That's a bad idea, first of all. Don't do this if you want money, but
this is not Dave Ramsey.
No, this is not I know every time I see a Dave Ramsey speech, I'm like, he's obviously not speaking to me because there's no solid income in this, and I have no idea when my money's going to be coming in. So he's like, just set aside this percentage of your income.
Just wait until you're married and have 4 kids, and your wife's a stay-at-home mom.
I will never get married, so.
That adds a little bit more pressure on the arts.
Oh, I mean,
Starving
I've seen it with
takes
you.
A whole nother different thing.
I listen. I ain't complaining, dude. I ain't complaining.
I'm just messing with you.
Back to what I was saying about those foundational building pieces. I feel like so many people get that turned around. I get asked that question many times. I'm not trying to insult people. For people that listen to the podcast, I'm sure many of them have reached out and asked me that question. It's not to insult. It's simply to say, get off your butt and get out there and do it. Commit yourself to the art. Commit yourself to your passion. If you really love it, you'd already be out there.
Yep.
And that's something, dude, I had a pillow behind my seat, blanket behind my seat. Never even had thoughts of staying in a hotel. What's a hotel? That's expensive. That's extra money. I never once thought about those things. And part of being, kind of in a grunt unit was that, being able to
sleep anywhere, man.
Yeah, sleep anywhere. I could sleep standing up.
How many times have we, between you, a lot more than me, because you do it, a lot more.
I just came off of 26 hours and 2 days on the road.
But if I had a nickel for every can of tuna fish that I ate in the back of a car sleeping in a desert, not in the Marine Corps, I'm talking about in my civilian job trying to make art with people that I care about, I would have a little bit more money than I have now.
Bro, luxury package.
Tuna fish that my wife sent because we had it in the pantry and I didn't have any money for any food. I had a plane ticket that was paid for.
Yeah.
And $100 for a rental car. And it's a hatchback and I'm 6'5" and I'm sleeping in and I don't have enough money to leave the AC on because I don't have enough gas money.
Mm-hmm.
that kind of deal.
Luxury package is like going to McDonald's and getting a double
shoot.
cheeseburger. You're like,
Yes.
oh my gosh, what did I do to deserve this? Thank you, Lord. Like, for me, and that's what I was getting to, though, is the serious part of that is like sleepless nights. I mean, I can't tell you how many. I pull more all-nighters since my master's degree than in my master's.
Which you need to quit because that's killing you slowly.
Yes.
I just listened to Joe Rogan about
I did too.
We're going to die
It's
because of all the
you
nights
and I will
we've
both.
missed.
Actually, we have 18 months left.
Exactly.
Both of us.
But that it actually has convinced. I need to start working.
Oh,
on
I do too,
forcing
bro.
myself
Yeah.
to sleep. Anyway, sorry.
No, I was
railroaded
just
us.
no. That's it's all good because this is you. But that's what I was getting to is where I find myself so often saying, like, I wish people would stop asking as many questions and more just like get to it. I know that I searched for that solid mentorship piece when I was in
Yeah.
it, but at the same time, that was really just in photography. It wasn't in the actual work because there
Right.
was no blueprint to work off of the Veterans Project. There was no blueprint for that. It was just like, okay, well, I'm going to go tell some stories and ask veterans questions.
When you bring up photography, I think that I think it's a perfect example of when people ask us about our art.
Right.
How many people, and for being my photography side, how many people have come to you and be like, "Hey, what kind of camera do I need to get?" And you're like, "Dude, all right, do you have a what's your budget? Oh, $400. Okay. Do you have an iPhone? Oh yeah. Until you master taking iPhone photos, don't buy a $400 camera. That's a piece of crap. Because if you don't understand composition and a little bit of lighting, then you're not going to amount to anything.
Bro, my first
But
master's
they
class-
want to do is spend money
Yeah.
to get to, and it's the same thing with what we do, people, especially in the veteran community.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody wants to be, they see everybody that doing well on social media and they think it looks cool and fun. So they decide, how can I shortcut my way there?
Mm-hmm.
And then they start asking all like, well, how do I do this, this, and this? Maybe if I start whatever. And the heart of their whole, what's behind their whole drive is selfish, and it's not about other people.
Yeah.
So it becomes, it might work for a little bit, but then it just becomes cheap and disgusting and gross.
Yeah, if I had a nickel for every time somebody asked, like, in the past 4 years, like, how do you do the Veterans Project? I want to do something similar to that. And I just go,
Just go do it.
Just go do it. And
At what point do you just say, I didn't ask anybody to do, I don't even know what I do, to be honest.
when I started the Veterans Project, there was no, like, honestly, if I'd seen somebody else in this vein who was doing black and white photos like mine or
You probably
whatever,
wouldn't have even
I
done
would have
it.
never done it.
Yeah.
Not in a million years. And that's not to say that you can't tell stories another way, but think of an original concept. For me, that's something I try to get across all the time is, to me, there's nothing new under the sun, as, you know, a wise man once put it, but art is original to me.
I slightly disagree, but continue.
Oh, yeah, no. So, and I'm glad that you do, because that'll bring a new idea and opinion. But for me, like, when I started the Veterans Project, like, my whole idea was, okay, if there's anything else out there like it, or in that black and white vein, somebody else is doing this kind of thing with Iraq and Afghanistan, I'm not going to do it. So I immediately told my professor at the time, nah, I'm not going to do this because there's probably like 10 other people doing it. And she's like, I think you'd be surprised. And I start looking around, and there wasn't. So I decided, okay, I'm going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But if there had been something like it, I just never want to be viewed as a copycat.
Yeah.
That scares me.
Oh, for sure.
Really badly.
For sure.
So do you see what I'm
No,
saying?
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I also think that there's, so I don't want to say I disagree,
Right.
but
You have an addendum to the thought.
yes, that there is nothing new. And for me, all of my great ideas are just 35 other people's great ideas that I've taken and meshed into something. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah.
So
it's always it's a smorgasbord.
just like we were
sometimes.
talking about earlier, like all the experiences that we've been through in our life, especially the hard stuff, comes out and makes our art the way it is. And I think the same thing happens with technique, with lighting, with composition, with ideas of what you're doing. It's all these, it's like making a delicious soup, and you have to put all the pieces in it, and it's original.
Right.
Each one of the ingredients isn't original, but when you put it all together, you are an original person.
Right.
And when you care about making that soup the best soup possible, and you don't want to be making it just like somebody else's soup, it shows. you might see, I could see that maybe he liked who so and so because it has that flair,
Right?
Whatever. Yeah, you'll pick it out, but you can always tell a copycat I've seen so many people doing exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
Let me just say, attempting to do what you're doing.
Thanks.
And the same with me. I've seen people, you do something and then people try to, and to me it's flattering more than anything. It's like, they're trying to be like me.
Right.
But most of them don't have the same drive. And if they're doing it to copy somebody, it's not going to last.
Yeah, talk about that, the passion side of that, because that's a word I always use again and again. Starving artist. You've been there.
Yes, I am there.
You
No, the Lord is good to me, and I've never, I was young and now I'm old, and I have not seen the righteous beg bread.
Yeah.
So I have never needed anything. But repeat that question.
No, where does the passion piece part of it play into that starving? And talk about starving. Talk about what that's like. Because I know, you, like you said, you've never been in a place where you've wanted really, but dude, you've had to have been scared.
Oh,
I've been scared.
I've wanted
so
a
many
lot.
times.
My kids have never missed a meal. Is what I'm saying.
Right? Yeah,
I've wanted a lot of things.
That's good.
And I've never.
I'm not going to have to call Child Protective Services.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like I live in America, and my kids have never missed a meal, and like. Yeah, there's a lot. I've had a lot of, just like remember a couple months ago, I had all of my whole production company robbed from me. Yeah. All my stuff was stolen. Lots of money worth of stuff was taken.
Where my camera's taken.
So what I was the passion part, and I'm not trying to knock you, and it's not that I don't. I just feel like people have used that word passion so much that people don't know what it actually means.
Right.
And I like to use, just like motivation. Motivation is an emotion. I'm not for sure if passion is.
Right.
Drive is neither. Drive is something that you wake up and do every day because it's what you know is right. Right. And it doesn't matter how you feel. So all that fake motivation is better than no motivation is complete crap. Okay, that's an emotion. Right. Emotions come and go like the waves of the sea. I mean, if you move off emotion, you're going to live a really sucky up and down life. But if you have drive and you pick out what you're going to do, and for me, what I'm going to do is serve the Lord and walk according to His ways,
right? And
ask Him before I take each step. So to the outside world looking in, I might look like he doesn't know what he's doing, but to me, I don't know what I'm doing, but I know that I'm not. I'm following Him, and sometimes that makes it's so weird. Opportunities come, big money opportunities. I'll go to Him, but figure out what it is. I don't think that's for me.
We've had those talks.
And then I haven't even told you about this one. And then it'll come back around because I waited on, I waited and I didn't jump after the flashy thing and all the money. Right. That same opportunity come back around right here in my spot. And it's like, anyway. So drive is the thing that I move off of, and that goes back to discipline.
Right.
And getting up and doing it when you don't feel like it. Because I can promise you, since you've started the project, you haven't felt like driving 24 hours without sleeping every couple days.
Yeah.
You haven't felt like sleeping in the back of your truck eating tuna fish out of a can like a cat. You haven't felt like sleeping with your, sweating. I'm trying not to
sweating
say.
bullets.
Do kids listen to this? I'm trying to
say whatever you want. Oh, please. Every one of these is going to be marked explicit, except for yours probably.
Okay.
I've had several where I've been like, to preface this, mother, do not listen.
Anyway, so I promise you haven't felt that way. So if you were going off of motivation or strictly passion, man, I don't know what the passion thing is. I haven't decided if I don't like that word. I just see so many. I see it cross-stitched on so many pillows and hung on so many walls.
But it means something different to me.
It does. Yeah. It does. So I guess for mine is drive. What's the drive behind it?
Right. I like that word. I like that word because it makes me think of like Jocko Willink, like 4 a.m. on the watch every morning. That Navy SEAL, who's like really big in our community, who has that really good podcast. He always takes a picture of his watch at 4 a.m. every morning in the gym with like sweat covering it. He doesn't feel like it every morning, dude. Are you kidding me? Like,
shoot. No.
Dude, I see it and I'm like, I see it like 3 hours later because I wake up at 7. I'm
somebody tells you they enjoy that.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's just like for me waking up and having my time with the Lord every morning, reading my Bible, my King James Bible. Promise you, I don't feel like doing that every morning. I wake up at 4 too. I don't always take a picture, but I do wake up at 4. And I read and I work out.
Well, since you don't take a picture, I don't blame you.
Didn't happen if it's not on Instagram. But a lot of times it's on Instagram. So anyway, but passion or drive or whatever it is that moves you besides motivation, all that crap comes and goes, I'm telling you.
How do you get there to where you are? And, like I said, I know that it's not perfect by any means, but to the place where you've gotten as an artist, how have you gotten there right now?
I think, can I tell a story?
Yes, of course.
And I don't know if
we're here for story time.
I don't know if it'll answer it. But
dude, I just had my 5th bang. You can tell as many stories as you want.
Do you have any more of that, by the way? Because I ran out of mine. And
yes, drink some of mine. There's only a little bit left, but I'm going to give you the rest. No, drink it.
Sorry.
No.
All right. So when did we do Doc Hazard? He passed away right before I left last year.
Right, yeah. Okay. Yeah, but Christmas. So probably about 2 years.
He died Christmas 17.
Yeah.
So the end of the year 17. Anyway, Dr. Mark Gordon Hazard, and he actually, I've never told you this, but he's a big reason why I had such a drive from a very young age to tell World War II gentlemen's stories. He was a hometown hero that I grew up. I would see him at the co-op, the feed store.
West Point, right?
Yeah, West Point, Mississippi. Every time I went to go get horse feed for the, for the horses, I would run into him or his. I never really got to speak to him. I would always look at him like he was a superhero, and he was always a people person, always talking to somebody. And then when his book came out, his book was everywhere. The World War II, as I remember it, by Mark Gordon Hazard. And I always just looked up to that man so much and read his book and knew his stories by heart. And then when we got to go, so I went to go. Anyway, we got to cover him together.
Right.
So I'd covered him from a film piece that we did on him, and I'd got to spend 4 or 5 days, straight days with him, and we got to know each other really well. And it was like, to be honest, I've never been more nervous. I've met a lot of celebrities. I've met a lot of cool people.
Yeah.
I have never felt more starstruck and nervous than I was going to this man's house that I'd already seen in person probably 100 times. I heard him speak, but to actually talk to him on the phone and go with him, go check his cattle with him, eat a pimento and cheese bread, white bread sandwich with him. And it was like nothing I've ever experienced. And you, I don't know how many people you've invited to come do a project with you. But I felt very honored that you would want me to be there.
Every time I actually invite somebody. I'm sorry, I just wanted to say that. Right.
No, you don't.
No, you don't. You were the only one, actually. At the time, you were the only one. I think Blake had been on half a day with me once. Yeah. And Blake has since been to World War II. But obviously that's very different since he is with the Veterans Project officially. This
man had a very, very, just the perfect story from beginning to end. I had so much in common with him. He found out his father died right before he went into Aachen as a platoon leader.
I forgot about that.
And every time over the week that I spent with him, that he brought that up, his lips would quiver and his eyes would tear up, and he would get choked up every time he talked about when he got the letter right before they went into Aachen and he found out his father died, and he had to go out away from his men because he was a platoon leader and sit under a tree and cry his eyes out. And this is a 94-year-old man telling us this with tears in his eyes, sobbing, talking about losing his dad when he was 21. I lost my dad when I was 21. I remember going sitting under a tree and sobbing so people wouldn't see me. I just had so much in common with this man. And then he went back to his men and they went and took Aachen. It was like he's a living legend. But I'm getting off the rails. And anyway, that's who we're talking about. This guy who's, he killed Nazis with a knife.
Yeah.
Kind of guy.
I remember when he grabbed the small of my back and then showed me, he was like,
"This is how you kill.
This is how you do it." And when he shoved his fist into my gut,
he did the same to me. It was
I felt like a 25-year-old middle linebacker grabbed me.
Yes.
I felt like powerless. And he was how old at the time?
94, and
94.
bent over, looking like
bent over, hunched over. He grabbed me, and that ferocity right there. I was just like, "Oh yes, you definitely did this."
Yes,
because the power that you felt in his grip and the look in his eye, he got that wild look in his eye.
and the Nazi
like,
helmet he had
ooh.
hanging by his
From
desk.
his first kill.
From his first kill.
Mm-hmm.
That he ended up he every time he killed a Nazi, he was from Mississippi. He was a Mississippi boy. Of course, you make a kill, you take something.
Yeah.
He started sending back. So when he went back to the back of the line, there was a whole pile of helmets. He was like, I'll just take the first one. That's the kind of guy we're talking about.
Yeah.
And okay, so that's the background story on Dr. Hazard. This day.
Can I stop you there?
Yes.
Because I don't want to leave that story because do you remember sitting in my car?
That's what I was going to.
Oh,
that's
okay.
what I was
You were
trying
going
to get
there.
to.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
that's where this is going.
Go.
So we had been out checking cattle with him. I was just tagging along, helping you wherever you needed, basically being quiet and listening. And so we're in the back of his car, Tim's car, which is a hatchback.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we put
It's very tight.
Put Mr. Hazard up front, and I'm a giant, and we had a lot of gear. And Tim is not known for a clean whip, by the way.
No, it is not clean.
We're both artists, and we're both disgusting.
Yes. Ask
Excuse
Nate Boyer, who once almost refused to get into my car.
I was there that night.
Oh, okay.
I remember.
Yeah.
He was going to pick up. I folded up in the back. There's no seat in the back, so I'm folded up with the gear. And we pull up to his house, and in route from the cattle barn to the house, we got into a very deep discussion with Mr. Hazard.
Yes.
An emotional story. He was telling us about how proud he was of his son.
Oh, man.
And this is a man that, like he said, he's killed more Nazis than most modern veterans have,
Then all
done.
the diseases, yes.
Yes. Anyway, he was so emotional, and I remember I was folded up in the back. It was hot. My legs were falling asleep. The discs that I have slipped to my back were just screaming at me to please stand up and help us. And nothing in me wanted to get out of that car besides my body screaming at me. But mentally, I knew there was no way to break this silence. There's no way to stop this man's train of thought. There's not a way to end this until he is ready for this to end. And it wasn't even, the part that we were talking about was not even war related.
No.
It was just, we knew that we cared about the man. And I remember thinking, I know Tim's probably worried about me because I was really like folded in half in the back. And I remember.
I was not.
Okay, well, good.
I was not because
I just
of
remember
him.
looking
That's not being
at
sarcastic.
you,
Yeah.
and you did not break eye contact with Mr. Hazard. I was behind him, so I had the luxury of looking back and forth. And I remember being so impressed with you and with Mr. Hazard and just the whole, I was so emotional.
Yeah.
And it wasn't from my muscle screaming at me. It was from, I finally met somebody who got, how do I say it? I finally met someone that had the same respect and just honor for these men that there's nothing that's going to stop us from letting them tell their story.
Right.
There was nothing cool what we were doing.
No.
It was not about us. There was no cameras rolling. There was no live feed going. There was nothing. It was just us cramped, sweating, and he was pouring his heart out. And it was, I don't know how long it was, maybe 30 minutes. It was a long time.
Maybe longer, yeah.
Maybe longer.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just remember getting out of that car when we finally did. We went and had a pimento and cheese sandwich.
And listened to him talk about Mississippi State football.
Yes. And then we went on the front porch. And I remember, I don't know if you remember this, but he was talking when you were taking the picture with his helmet on the front steps.
Yeah, that was actually before. Yeah.
Was that before?
Mm-hmm, that was before.
Anyway, I just remember I just started tearing up and crying. I looked over, and Tim's teared up and crying.
Of course.
And we're both like, we didn't say a word. We didn't have to. It clicked. I don't know.
That was one of the most powerful storytelling moments in my career of doing this.
Same, and that's I've never had that experience again with somebody else.
Yeah.
And I'm not knocking other people I've worked with. I just what you had and what I saw you have was like looking in a mirror. And we're so different in so many other ways.
Yes.
But when that happened, it was just like I don't know how to describe it, but
all those other intangible and tangible differences don't matter because of who we are as storytellers.
Right.
And that is why we are such good friends and brothers.
Yes.
Because go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just saying in that moment, man, I remember it was like the question, was like very kind of simple, but it was like, and I'll have to check the transcripts on this because I haven't reviewed them since, and I've still got a project coming on him. But when I sat there, it was like, it was a moment where we had asked him about the end of the war.
Yep.
And he, oh, dude, I'm getting chills. Okay. Gosh, I'm just crying like babies. There's his video. But I do want to pay this moment the proper reverence because it was so serious. But serious in its simplicity. That was really the beauty of it. And I kind of want to paint this picture for you guys. But we're sitting there in his probably 1930s era, maybe earlier, house on the front porch in his classic Mississippi, style home, beautiful home. And we're out there and the flag is flying over the top and he's got his helmet of, his first Nazi kill there and the heavy swastika chain where you feel that almost presence of evil when you hold it. It's amazing. Yes. And there's a heavy spirituality attached to that moment, but you're sitting there with this man who is, an incredible example of what a warfighter should be and is an incredible example to us younger generation who are experiencing any of this type of entitlement that we might be feeling that we should not, because men like this don't. And in that moment, the humility he showed in opening up, and when you see a World War II veteran as hard as woodpecker lips quiver and tear up, there's something so unsettling because you seeing a man like that emotional is like, oh my gosh, if he like that, because he doesn't cry easily. His tears were so meaningful when you asked him, and he said, I'll never forget that. He said, I said, what was it like realizing that we had won? And he said to us, that was, I remember being back. I was back in the States already. And when I realized we had won, I just felt this incredible sense of joy and accomplishment. And then he started tearing up. And then I start tearing up. And I'm looking over at you, and you're tearing up. And there's just, except for his little quiver, dead silence. And I'm like, this is storytelling. This is how it should be. This is perfect. The moment was perfect. Everything about it. You can't ask for better than that. And that's what I was going to say, was that moment with you there, that really, more than even Sundance, I'd already seen that storytelling side of you, but like I realized how great your empathy was in that moment, was sitting there, tearing up, looking at each other and realizing like, this is what it's about. And for those of you listening out there to this, that simple moment, that moment before where he talked about his son and tearing up, that's what our direction in storytelling, and I can't speak for Jesse, but that's what my direction in storytelling is always. Those are the best moments, the simple moments, not the, I stabbed 10 Nazis and then, dug for a trench knife and then found one, stabbed the other one in the throat as he was running up on me. Better than that. Those stories are cool, fun to hear. Stories that always impact me the most are the most simple moments like that. He was so proud of his son, and he was so proud of his freedom. I mean, can you imagine the impact of that moment of knowing I am directly responsible? I mean, dude, I would have a head the size of Texas.
And he more than most.
Yeah.
And also, remember, he was his number got called to go home right before they crossed the river.
Right, yeah.
And he didn't want to go. He went kicking and screaming.
Mm-hmm.
And so when he got home, not long after that, and found out, you remember him tearing up about his boys. It's like, my boys are going to make it. the ones that hadn't died yet.
yeah.
Because he started naming the ones that had died.
Dude, even in that simple moment where like guy was like relieving himself and like got killed by like a mortar round like towards the end of the war. Remember that where he's talking about like going and picking up, simple like fruit out of somebody's yard or something like that over there. And even that, I mean, so many things could kill you back then.
Yep.
And it's better, I mean, in war period, but a war like that where you're frontline units, I mean, chances of you making it back are not good.
Yeah. So when people ask, when they come up, and I'm just going to say it.
Say it.
I have a really hard time with a lot of modern veterans, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be holier than thou. It's just like when I am around these kind of guys that we just described, my service wasn't that great compared to what he's done.
Yeah.
And so to try to me go around and puff my chest out and act like I did something when guys have done so much more. So when I have somebody come up and say they kind of want to get to where I'm at, which I'm not anywhere, by the way. So don't want to be like where I am.
Are.
I'm just saying, but
humble.
They're trying to be like, well, how did you get to this point? How do you get involved with this? I would love to do that. Well, and I have so many of them. Dude, how'd you get him to spell like that? Man, I'll give him a fifth of whiskey. I can't get him to talk like that to me. Like, dude.
Yeah, you're talking about like personal references to get contacts and
yeah,
things like
like can I? And it's like, dude, you don't understand. This is not a game of Instagram.
No.
This is not. I don't give a. Just like you said in that moment when he was quivering on that front step, we didn't have a thing recording.
No,
This was all in our. We have this gift that nobody else has, and we got to experience it. We can go back on that front porch. His wife died about 2 weeks ago, by the way.
Oh, jeez.
And I forgot to tell you that.
Yeah.
Sorry I dropped that bomb. But I was just like 20 minutes from here. We could go there.
Right.
We have that moment that nobody can take from us.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid a lot of people, if they weren't rolling, wouldn't have really cared about that moment. And I think that's the difference between a true storyteller who really cares about people and somebody who's trying to get fame or not fame, but just like clout or whatever.
Well, I think something that, to really get to the heart of that, I think that, something that people, they were really being honest with themselves. Like when guys try to act hard nowadays or, like they've done a lot, which, we've got our fair share, a lot of guys who've been through a lot. And I don't want to take away from that, but compared to those guys, take Tim Kennedy, take Rudy Reyes. I'll name names. I don't care. Take any of those guys. And those guys would be the first to tell you, hey, we don't compare to that generation.
Yeah.
It's different. It's just different. It is what it is. And that can't be controlled by Tim or Rudy. I mean, they're both hard dudes, who were great at their profession, extremely great in the special operations world. But to compare yourself to that, you would have to change the whole structure of our war.
Yep.
And you just can't. So you can't compare. So like when the World War II guys will ask me, I'm sure they've asked you this, do you think you guys could do what we did? I just tell them, no, I don't think so. But I say it not offensively. It's because I can't claim it.
Yeah,
I can't.
But
I can't say we could.
I don't know if you've seen it, but everyone I've talked to, they act like we could, and
which
they're
is ridiculous.
They thank me for what I've done, and they shake my hand.
Oh yeah,
and they try to act like they're so humble about it, and I cannot hardly stand it when they it makes me proud. Mm-hmm. When an old leatherneck that's been that was on Iwo Jima shakes my hand and said, "Thank you for your service, son."
Yeah.
I was like, I want to be like Job and put my hand over my mouth and be like, I don't have anything to say, sir.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say to that because you can't thank me for that.
Right.
Like, not you, out of all people. But
I'm
just saying that to show their humility.
Right.
And it's like our generation will get our time one day.
Yes.
I promise you.
Yes.
We'll get our time to tell
will.
our stories. Yeah. But right now, I don't really. It's not that I don't care about our stories at all. That's not what it is. It's just
no, you do. You care about them more than most.
Yes, but we have time to tell ours.
We do.
Okay?
Yes. How many times have I asked you about a World War II project or something? You've been like, dude, you don't need to do this Iraq or Afghanistan project right now. You need to get to that World War II.
Yeah, the dude. I mean, we're not dying that fast, okay? But World War II, those gentlemen are dying The young ones are 94.
Yeah.
And then Korea is right behind them.
Yeah.
Right behind them.
Right.
And the Vietnam guys are dying super fast because of all the cancer and the Agent Orange.
yeah.
I mean, they're dying so fast.
Yes.
And it's like, and then, I don't know. I'm not trying to say people are selfish. I just, to be honest, I don't care as much about our stories right now because we got time. We got time to tell ours. They don't have any time. And I feel like it's our job, yours and mine, to get as many of those stories told. And to be honest, I feel guilty a lot of time because I have to figure out how to provide for my family.
Yeah.
And telling World War II gentlemen's stories does not pay the bills.
Doesn't pay the bills.
So it becomes a black hole where I'm throwing my money, and it's worth it, but I also have to keep the lights burning at home. So it's like this constant, when I'm not doing it, I feel guilty for not doing it because I feel like, and I know I'm not,
because you'll never get those opportunities back.
No, and I don't feel like there's enough of us out there that are doing it in the way that we do it that honestly are not doing it for fame or clout or recognition.
Absolutely.
I don't feel like there's enough of us out there. And if we had 10 million of us, there wouldn't be enough. You know what I'm saying? But
yeah.
I'm just.
No, do you
that's
remember?
just me being honest. I feel guilty sitting here right now, talking to you instead of talking to one of them getting there. But I don't have the resources or the. You know what I'm saying? Like
all my.
They're dying so fast, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And all my resources. It's the same way, man. Like. Sponsorships come to Iraq and Afghanistan, guys. These tactical medical companies, these weightlifting companies, and incredible sponsors, and I got to thank them. None of the guys like Sornex and D-Day Response Group that have sponsored the project. They're going for the young guys because those are the projects that, at the end of the day, they're really working with closely, and I don't blame them at all. In fact, those stories are very powerful too. But I wish that there were sponsors out there as well that were as impacted and in touch with the World War II community, because I would love to tell those stories all day. And you want to talk about dynamic too, man. You don't have to go digging, because those guys, it's like, oh yeah, my first day was this, and you're like, oh, okay, my brain just exploded inside of my head from day one of your combat story.
Yes.
So for me, I what I'm saying is I'm in complete agreement. But you hit on something that I want to touch on.
Okay.
Business. How do you my brain's breaking right now.
Are you trying to say how do I pay the bills?
How do you pay the bill? Yeah, because people want to know that. Like that's and that's one thing that I really want. I want this podcast to be practical as well.
Okay.
To inspire.
I mean, you honestly want to know how to pay the bills?
How do you make artwork for that?
Okay. I lean heavily on what you're about to say. Something.
I don't. I sell drugs.
I'm like,
I
I'm
have
not
a massive operation in
a
Mexico right now.
I'm a nice crack dealer.
But go ahead. I want to get to that business side.
Okay. Well, when I figure that out, I'll get back with you and we can do a podcast on that. But no,
episode 2.
To be honest, I do a lot of photography. I do a lot of photography.
You said that.
Yeah, it kind of fell out of my mouth weird. But
Sounds
so I lean back on my photography a lot. Shoot for different companies. I do a little consulting for online brands on how to, especially on our social media, how to tell their story with images and film. So I don't always do the content myself, but I'm a content creator and advisor to these brands on how to like sell. If you're going to sell a T-shirt, why you don't put it on a model and stand them in the studio and say buy the shirt for $19.99.
Right.
You somehow have it in a story, and then I do film work through. Basically, I do anything, man. There's I work for myself, so some months, man, I'm slam packed. I'm on the road every weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes I go a month without working at all. Without working with my film, so I have to go to work. To be honest, you know how many times I've had to go and pick up a drip torch and go burn land like I used to.
I remember when you were doing that a lot. That was like right after Sundance. Like,
yeah, dude,
hey,
I was doing it,
you
man.
Made it to the greatest film festival in the world. Go burn.
And then I'm burning land the next week because, I mean, a lot of people, they act like once you make it and you're done. It's like, no. I have never made it anywhere, by the way. But when I get there, I promise you I'm not going to be able to stay there. So and that kind of goes back to, I don't really know if this is practical, like nuts and bolts, but I think it's somebody can get something out of this is don't be above work. Don't be above your, like, once I'm a DP now. I'm a director of photography for this TV, so I do TV producing and I work on TV shows and stuff like that. So as soon as I get all right, I'm the DP now.
Right.
Well, does that mean I'm never going to take a gaffing job or I'm never going to be whatever else,
Best boy.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
But a lot of people have that attitude. A lot of non-successful people, they think, oh, I directed this film, so I'm a director now. Well, you may have directed that film and you can call yourself a director, but I promise you're going to not direct something if you're going to work somewhere else.
Bro, there are people in Hollywood right now that are 10 years ago that are now bankrupt.
Yeah.
That's being an artist.
But they have that attitude of so what I'm saying is I am not above working with my hands, mowing grass. You know how many I can paint houses. I can build. I hate construction work, man. I grew up doing it, hate it, but I know how to. And when things get tough, I'll go be a handyman. I haven't had to do that in the past year or two, but I'm not above it.
Right.
And I honestly, to make sure my ego is not wrapped up in what I do.
Yeah.
Every time I have to do that, I try to put it out on social media and let people see it. Because people have this attitude,
awesome.
This idea of, people that I follow on social media, their life is perfect and all this stuff. It's like, no, it's, I show you what I want you to see, but I also want people to see, like, real life hits you and it knocks you down. Real life is beautiful and it's sad and it's hard and it's fun and it's just the best. Life is amazing, but life also sucks sometimes. And if you're always trying to show people how amazing it is, you're letting other people whose life is sucking at that moment think, oh, what am I doing wrong? It's like, no, everybody has struggles, man. So when I have to go pull a drip torch through a cutover in the backwoods of Mississippi with nobody knowing what I'm doing, there's nothing cool about it. I like to let people know. I'll put it on my story. I'll put it on the post and be like, hey, yeah. Last week I was at Sundance. Or in Hollywood, or at, New York at this event, whatever. And this week, I'm in the Briar Patch. I've caught my pants on fire 3 times today, actually. And I come home, and guess what? My wife and kids love me just the same. Mm-hmm. My wife kisses me just as sweet. Mm-hmm. My kids don't think any less of me.
Right.
And I feel successful.
Yeah.
And it's not. So I've told my wife this 100 times. I've told a lot of people this. Yeah. People think, oh, you're doing well right now. Things are going up. You're shooting for the moon. Like, yeah, well, next week I might be spinning a sign outside of Little Caesars, like for real. And I'm not above it. I'll be that kid out there with the headphones on, dancing, swinging a sign, because I'm not above going back to doing what I've done in the past to provide for my family. I really don't give a rip how I make a living. Now, I would much rather do it in the arts because that's what I enjoy and that's what I love. And to be honest, that's when my dad died. He had told me for years, just start doing photography, man. You got the art. Just go do it. Charge what the professionals do and see what happens. And I never did it. And when he died, I was like, no, I'm just going to do it.
And that's something I really want to compliment you on is a lot of people just say what you just said. I would go out there and do whatever. Dude, like the actual
seen me mowing grass for money.
I saw you right after Sundance, like out there with a torch. I was like, oh, wait, what is he doing? Oh, he's out there with a drip. Oh, okay. But dude, the way I was raised, same thing. I remember it was like, a few weeks after I had like this really big successful event, I just received this award, this Chris Kyle award through Operation Valor. Shout out to Operation Valor. I appreciate that. I don't think the award was me, but I appreciate it for sure. Dude, like 3 days later, I was like putting up siding on the house of my dad in like 110 degree San Antonio humidity.
And a lot of people see that as a negative. It's not.
It's not.
It's real life.
It was so humbling too, yeah.
If you own it,
it felt great.
It helps you. It helps your humility and it helps your art.
It felt
because it's like, next time you get a story and you're doing it, you remember that 105
feels
degree
so
heat.
good too.
Yeah, and that's the thing, man. I see
those
so
low
many
points,
people,
man.
They're embarrassed to show the low points,
and they want to run from those low points.
And to be honest, I think that plays somewhat into the whole epidemic of people getting depressed and blowing their brains out because they see everybody else doing all this amazing stuff, and I'm not linking it straight to social media at all, but I think the more real you can be in the interwebs of the more real you can be about how life hits you and hurts, it actually helps people more than if you're just always telling them how peachy your life is. And all this fake it till you make it is absolute garbage.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, that goes back to a greater issue, obviously, that egocentric behavior all links itself to social media. Like, I got my master's in social media. One of the things is that we were always talking about was theory of like, which happened first, like psychological problems or the issue of social media, like, becoming like propagating that and making it worse. But I'll just say, like, before social media existed, ego existed. Social media has just helped play that up, right? Like, and it's made it easier to do those things.
Yeah.
I think most of your posts are with your family, you're with your kids, or you're bailing.
Yeah, I've kind of taken a different route.
Whoa,
I just way too close to the mic. Yeah. I want it to, through my social. I want it to make it look cool to love your wife and kids. Like that's what it is. So.
What? That's not cool.
Well, there's so many people in the social media world that I've lived, like they don't want their wife anything because that'll cut off on female followers, and they don't want their kids because whatever. And I don't want to exploit my kids, and I don't want to exploit my wife. That's not what I'm doing. But I do want to show that, like, it's okay to be a man and love your wife.
But that's
and
toxic,
love your
bro.
kids. I know. It's gross. I am disgusting.
I love that because, and I also think it plays well to your following, which you've grown into that, right? Like your following has come from not people that are just like-minded with you, but people see and they're like, oh, that's cool. Like, he actually makes that look cool. And it's because it is cool.
And it's not fake.
It's not fake. It's real.
Yeah, I mean, it's like,
I've been here.
I'm
sitting
kids.
here in Mississippi right now. It's real.
Yeah. I just wish more people that, and I'm not a social media celebrity by any stretch, but I do, what little platform I have, I want to use it for good, and I want to, anyway, just.
No, I get you. There's a frustration there.
Way
for sure.
too seriously, yeah. And then a lot of the people that you meet at these events and whatever, and you followed them forever. They have these huge accounts with the blue check marks, and then you meet them and you're like, this person sucks. Like, this person is not
that's
real.
Real talk from Jesse Phillips.
I'm sorry, but that's like, and then they act like I'm a nobody because I don't have.
They also act like you should know them.
Yeah,
and
they
really
introduce
gross.
themselves by their Instagram handle. It's like, dude, what are we doing? Fake names?
This is
that what we're doing? Are we doing fake names now?
Dude, we really probably should start that. We should just go around. This is at the real Jesse Phillips.
Yeah, I'm the veterans. I'm whatever. I can't stand that.
I love it when people make fun of me.
Pisses me off more than anything is when somebody introduces me to. They say, "Hey, I am so and so." And they give their Instagram handle. I'm telling you,
that's so obnoxious.
If you want me to, yes, that is so obnoxious. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it so much, Tim. And I'm sorry I got around that.
No, it's good.
People on social media really need to cool it with the whole, hey, my life is perfect. Because people are killing themselves because they think their life is not perfect.
It's actually a massive issue in our society.
It is.
Right now. Yeah.
A lot of people are depressed nowadays. A lot of people, and the veteran community does not have a leg up on that. There's a lot of people struggling right now, and they're always, there's nothing new under the sun. But I honestly think that social media plays a big part into that. It's not the biggest part, but I think it's a part worth noting. And if you have any kind of account, just start thinking about like how often do you let people see when you get knocked down by life? Like, I don't know about you, but I get punched in the mouth a lot by life, and I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, always talking about my problems, but I do want to, because my life is great. I
never get that. Yeah, absolutely. We're above ground is awesome, and combat reminds you of that. Like being overseas reminds you of that a lot.
Every time you see somebody, anyway.
Yeah, that's something that I never get that sense from you though. Is on your social media, like of being down or
Well,
anything.
I
In fact,
wonder. Sometimes I wonder that. I'm glad to hear
No.
you say that. It's like, am I posting too much
No.
about like how much life just punched me in the mouth?
No, I mean, I think it's natural to get down sometimes, especially when you have all your equipment showing for your passion, your drive that you love, your commitment in life. That sucks, man. Like, I mean, that's a really hard place to be.
Mm-hmm.
But still,
On top of 2 surgeries, laid me on my back. I couldn't get out of bed. And
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. This
And my
isn't
wife.
the feel sympathy for wham wham boo boo Jesse Phillips.
I'm just saying.
You're a Marine.
Hey,
Get
I'm
over
not,
it.
I'm just. There's so many people that think
No,
my life
yeah.
is perfect.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, have you read my Instagram post? Like,
Yeah. Absolutely.
But I guess at every one, I try to have an uplifting at the end of it. Like, yeah, I just got punched in the mouth.
yeah.
But this, and this.
I never gathered that from your. In fact, your social media to me feels almost completely positive and upbeat in your honesty, and I think that's a very powerful thing. It's also a part of your Mississippi upbringing, like the realness. I mean, you for me are a PR dream because you're clean cut, you do things properly, and you're not doing it for that, but you are because you do things properly in life. You go about it the right way. You maintain your humility. You show your family. You show off your beautiful Mississippi background, which is great. It's humble. It's down to earth, but it's very family inclusive, which is awesome. And it's what you're all about. It's the reality of the situation. You don't have to fake it. There's nobody coming in here and like putting makeup on y'all and like, all right, guys, now I need you to look down home in Mississippi.
Yeah.
Jesse, let's play that accent up a little bit. All right, howdy, y'all.
Man,
I love it out
I've
here.
been trying to get rid of my accent for years.
No, I mean I love it. What I'm saying is I always feel a sense of positivity, even in all your posts. And for those of you out there, it's the real Jesse Phillips, right? On
Yeah.
Instagram,
Jesse R. Phillips, but yeah.
yeah, the real Jesse R. Phillips. Your Instagram is awesome, but it's very real, and that's part of what makes it awesome. So how do you get, how do you maintain that sense of authenticity? And do you ever feel yourself betraying that? Has there ever been a time where you've been like, let my ego get a little hold of me then, or I feel like my direction in my art is going in a different way than I wanted it to? That's a hard question.
That is a hard
answer.
question. I don't want to say no, but I have my wife we're very, very we don't. The hardest thing for me to do, because I saw so many people on social media that disgusted me, that I didn't ever want to look like that.
Right.
And I saw a lot of people trying to sell stuff, and I didn't want to look like a salesman. So, and then because for the longest time I just put my photography work on there. Nobody knew who I was.
Right.
And I had a lot of people encourage me. I had like 1,000 followers and thought I was high rolling. And then somebody was like, "Hey, you're a pretty fun guy. Why don't you let people know about the artist and a little bit less about the art?" I'm like, okay. The hardest thing for me was starting to talk into an Instagram story.
Right.
And that's what I'm a shy guy, and a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
I don't like being in front of people. So when Instagram came out with the stories, I was like, dude, I gotta start working on because I have a lot of aspirations of doing a lot more than I'm doing right now.
Right.
And all that has to do with me being able to talk and function in front of people. So
Right, yeah.
I got to figure that out. And so I guess when I started doing that, I call it smell check. Every time I write a post or do a story, I get my wife to check it. And she is the best smell checker there is.
That's
and
smart.
She was like, if that makes me twitch a little bit, she tells me and I'll take it right down, or I won't post it at all, or I'll write something and I think it's perfect and I'll text it to her. She fixes all my misspelled words, and then she's like, I don't think that you should say this in this way. That sounds a little harsh, or that sounds a little crude, or that sounds whatever. And it's like, sometimes it makes me mad. I'm like, what? But that's like who I am. But it helps to have. She's my editor.
Bro, no, I'm glad you made that point.
Because
everybody needs a smell checker.
Yes, and she's my smell checker, and she's very sensitive.
Yeah.
And so I trust her immensely. So I don't want to say that I haven't got to that point where I'm like, yeah, maybe I got out of whack. But the other thing is I work with a lot of companies, but I'm not one of those like huge, like, I don't want like 50,000 promo codes on my thing to make people think that I'm cool. So I don't make money off of promo codes. I love to work with companies, and if I use their products, you'll see it on my Instagram.
Right.
But I'm not beholden to anybody to forcibly post X amount of stuff. That's helped me feel like I can keep my authenticity. I've seen a lot of people, they get well and they get all these followers and all of a sudden they start doing all this stuff. It's like, that's not who you are. Why are you doing that?
Right.
Hey, go like this. And then they take it down and, they're like this, and it becomes their walking billboard. I don't want to be that. I'd rather be, hey, this is what I do. Yeah, I'm wearing this cool hat because I love it.
Right.
And somebody asked me where to get it. So I can give you a promo code for it, but I'm not like, that's not where I make my living.
Right.
So it helps me be able to stay just like who I am. And I'm very, very sensitive to that, not being beholden to someone telling me how I need to run my social media. Because to me, it's my life. And I'm trying to be an example to people that are following me. So I don't want to, I take that very serious because I care about their soul more than my followers.
Yeah, right.
If that makes sense. It goes back to what we were talking about.
Do you have any, you're obviously still in the Marine Corps Reserves, and, do you have any special projects that you're working on right now that you're really looking forward to?
Yes. I have several. Some of them.
Tell me.
Some of them I am not at liberty to talk about yet.
Tell me the ones that you are.
One of them that I really, this one, I don't know how much I'm supposed to talk about. So
just talk about the one that you for sure know you can.
Well, I don't know. That's the thing. I don't know.
Oh, you don't know if you have any.
Well, I have a. I don't
Jesse,
know if I want to show my hand.
Do you need
yet.
work? No.
I don't want. Yeah.
Will you come with? Do you want to come with me to DC?
There's one that I'm really excited about, and this sounds funny, and I don't know if I'm ready for the world to know about it yet. But hey,
yeah,
I'm going to do it.
You need
and
to
I'll ask forgiveness
here.
later.
Yeah, I love it.
Who I'm working with, but I think there's something that we can do in the military, especially the infantry, that can help young grunts learn how to deal with stress before they get to combat. To help their reintegration later a little bit easier.
Okay.
I think that there is something that we can do. There has to be something we can do because, I mean, it's all this. And sitting to a PowerPoint is not what I'm talking about.
Right.
It seems like the military is really great at teaching people. The infantry is good about teaching people how to kill. Coming back and getting back in the real world, especially you just brought up that I was a reservist. I was trying to keep that quiet. I'm just kidding. I don't care.
Okay.
I'm a nasty reservist.
No, I was a nasty guardsman. So.
And that has a whole different set of struggles because you get back from combat and then you are not getting paid anymore.
No, yeah, you're thrust right back in.
Your business that you spent 7 or 8 years building up has gone to crap because you've been gone for 12 months.
Right.
And then your wife and kids
hate you. Sorry. I was just talking about my personal experience. Sorry, I don't have any kids. But.
It just, all of a sudden you're back in a real life. And I'm not saying active guys don't have real lives, but they go back to their barracks, they go back to their buddies, and then their hard part is when they get out of the service at the end of it.
Right.
For us, it's like you get back from a combat deployment and all of a sudden, boom, you're back. 1 week you're in Helmand, and then a couple weeks later you're home, trying to figure out how to make a living again.
Yep.
And all your contacts, if you work with the fire department or the police department, they have to hold your job for you. But if you're an entrepreneur or you have your own business, there's no law that says your clients have to stay with you, and most of them don't because they have to get their work done. Right, something else.
And it's good that there is no law.
Yeah, I'm not saying there should be, but there's a struggle,
right?
Especially for a lot of reservists are married men, married businessmen with kids, and then they get back and they're like, "Crap, my business is not here anymore." I don't even know where I was going with that, but
you were talking about this project that you were working on.
The project, yes. So I think there's a way to. I don't want to disclose too much of it, but I think there's a way to come up with a system, a project that infuses several different things into one through mental toughness, stretching, a lot of yoga, meditation, a lot of different things into a certain kind of package that's easy to swallow for a grunt, not
not a fancy unicorn like myself.
Not a hippy dippy kind of thing, but an actual. This is what you do with your mind, with your spirit and with your body when you're freaking out and you're having a panic attack.
Yeah.
This is how you do it. Or
Ooh, I like that.
you just got shot at and you for the first time and you're back and you're like, okay, that was fun, but why do I feel that I feel? Or you see somebody get blown away and you're like, okay, now what? Like, how do I process? You know how it is. When you're over there, you take all of these things, all these stressors, especially when you're at a place of leadership. You don't have the luxury of letting people know that you're struggling over there because you got a bunch of Lance Corporals and PFCs looking at you. So you suppress every single thing, every fear, every thought that is scary, every piece of anxiety that you have, you tuck it down in your stomach and you hide it.
Right.
And then when you get home, and you never lose your cool. You know, nothing. You never get rocked. You know, you're the guy, right? And then you get home and you're something. Everything you suppress over there comes out sometime.
Right.
It might not be for a month. It might not be for 6 years. It might be 10 years later, but it will come out. And usually when it comes out, it's gross and it's not good for you. It's not good for your family. And I think that there's a way to kind of help guys figure out how to deal with that as it's happening instead of wait until they get out of the service or they get home.
Right.
So
wow.
I don't know. That's a project I'm working on.
No, that's cool. I mean, whatever it is, it sounds amazing.
Yeah, I'm trying to be vague because I don't want to.
That was vague.
It's very vague. Yeah. But that's what it's about.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you know the direction.
Right, absolutely.
You don't know the process, but you know the direction.
Yes. I kind of wanted to close things up. I always, by asking, what do you want people to remember Jesse Phillips as?
I'm proud of being a Marine. I don't really care if I'm remembered for that. I'm proud of being from Mississippi. I'm proud of being an American, but my allegiance is not here. It's with Christ. Mm-hmm. And I want to be known for somebody that, like in 2 Timothy 2:2, it talks about teaching young men. And you teach them in such a way that they turn around and they teach other young men, and then they teach their young men. So I want to teach my kids, and I want my grandkids to be walking with the Lord and living the way that they should be. And I want their kids to do it. And that's what I want to be known for, just like my father was known. And that's, to be honest, I don't care if people remember if I'm a Marine or a filmmaker or if I was a funny guy on a podcast or whatever it is. I want them to, if they look at me, I want them to say that man trusted the Lord and raised his family in a way that they turn around and raise their family the same way. Because if I just get them up through high school and into college, that doesn't, without going to jail, that doesn't mean I'm successful. When I feel like I'm successful is when my grandkids have kids, and those kids are being raised the same way. And my great-grandkids are fearing the Lord and loving people more than they love clout.
Clout. Such a big thing nowadays.
Yes, and it's disgusting.
Well,
did that answer my question?
That did answer my question, and it was very powerful. And I think one thing, you, the audience out there listening to this podcast, will hear in Jesse's words is every veteran that I've covered so far has been completely different. We have veterans who are full-blown atheists, agnostic, come from very many different backgrounds. The diversity is there. And so I really wanted Jesse to get into it about his faith. And, to be honest, I don't care if anybody appreciates it or not. It's it's testamental to my life. It's been important to his life. It is everything to my work in that I see this as an act of testimony. I don't see myself as perfect or by any means. In fact, I mess up every single day. I've messed up in a lot of ways that, are big in my life. Not very far from perfect, but faith is such a massive thing to me. The Lord is a massive thing to Jesse, and I really wanted him to bring that side of his background, and that's something Jesse would never apologize for, and something I've always appreciated about the whole Phillips clan. They don't care what crowd they're in. You can put them in the middle of Hollywood, standing on a red carpet, whoever, they will bring up their faith, because that is pertinent to their testimony, and that is who they are. That's something I really appreciate about you, Jesse. On top of that, I appreciate you as a family man. I appreciate you being a good husband. I appreciate you raising your children right. I appreciate you being that son that my mom wishes she had. But so for me, like I just want to say that it's been a privilege to have you on the show. But Jesse has an awesome story, and I really appreciate you bringing the artist perspective.
Man, I appreciate you having me, and I'm very humbled by your kind words. I think some of them are misplaced, but I appreciate you.
Well, luckily I made it all up from the script
can
that
I
I'm
say-
reading.
Can I say it in front of the world?
Yeah.
I love you. I do. I
will.
honestly do.
Well,
And that whole,
I love you too.
I don't know what episode it'll be in the first episode, the second one about Mr. Hazard, that moment we had.
Yeah.
That's when I realized that our friendship is going to last. I see us being able to have this, when we're his age.
Yeah.
And we're going to remember that moment.
It's been a pleasure, and we're gonna talk to your brother tomorrow.
Well, I'm excited to hear
Jacob.
that. He's a lot more interesting than I am.
No, well, I think you guys are both interesting in very different ways. So, very different. But I just wanted to thank you for coming on. Thanks to everybody listening. Please rate, subscribe, review the show. I hope you've enjoyed this authentic measure of the crickets in the background and all that, because this is the most Mississippi podcast I've ever done, for sure. And we appreciate the setting, because we were sitting on a front porch in rocking chairs like a couple of old Southern gentlemen.
Literally swatting mosquitoes.
Yes, literally swatting mosquitoes.
First thing you said was, "Do you have bug spray?"
Yeah, because I knew they love my blood, and they will tear me apart.
They hate Texans around here.
Like most other states do. Super annoying. Jesse, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate you. Love you, bro. And thanks, man.
Thank you, man. Love you, bro. Have a good night.
This has been the Veterans Project Podcast with our founder, Tim Kay. Check us out at www.thevetsproject.com, on Instagram @The Veterans Project, Facebook, The Veterans Project, and Twitter @Project_Veteran. Thanks for listening, and don't forget, our legacies are the mission.